All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Women Plus Water conversation. I want to begin by acknowledging that all of us are participating today from traditional territories of First Peoples across the country and around the world. Those of us in Saskatoon today, Saskatchewan, Canada, we're gathered here on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. We are committed to honoring and supporting the Indigenous peoples, Indigenous cultures, Indigenous values, and Indigenous languages that belong to the land. Water is the lifeblood of people and societies, and they connect us all. So we pay our respects to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of the Saskatoon region and reaffirm our relationships with one another and with the land and waters that are essential to our health and well-being. I invite all of you guys today joining from other territories to reflect on and recognize the lands and waters you call home and set an intention to have a productive and positive conversation today. So my name is Stacey Demansky. I am an outreach specialist with the University of Saskatchewan, and I'll be your host for the Women Plus Water conversation today. And today we're welcoming a few special guests who are here to discuss the water towers of the world, which is our mountains and our glaciers. This conversation is being held in honor of the first ever World Day for Glaciers, and that's happening tomorrow, March 21st. And this year, which is 2025, has also been designated as the International Year of Glaciers Preservation. So this day and year were kind of developed, that's not the word, but we're celebrating today and this year as a way to aim to raise global awareness about the importance of glaciers, how climate change is impacting them, and the urgent need for preservation efforts. Glaciers play such a critical role in supplying fresh water to our ecosystems and communities, for sea level regulation and climate stability, and that emphasizes the need for action to protect these vital ice reserves. We're also aligning this event with this year's World Water Day, on March 22nd. And the theme for this year is glacier preservation to align with the first World Day for Glaciers. So without further ado, let's get this event started. As always, we're going to start off with some logistics for today's event. The event will be about 1 hour in length and it is being captioned live. So if you'd like to access those captions, click that CC button on the toolbar and English captions will be visible for you. We also have a couple of French interpreters joining us today to translate this event into French. So feel free to switch over to the French using that globe button in the bottom toolbar. And we're also recording this event and we'll be sharing it after on YouTube and our website, and it'll be in both English and French. So today we'll start off with some discussions with our guests today, and in the last 10 minutes, you all will have an opportunity to pose some questions to our guests. So please use that Q&A function to submit your questions, and we'll draw upon those at the end of the event. And lastly, we invite all of the students and young professionals attending today to stay on after the conversation for an open discussion with a few of today's guests. So thank you to those guests today who are sticking around and for volunteering a little bit extra of your time to do this. We really, really appreciate it. And speaking of guests, I'm thrilled to be joined today by 4 phenomenal people who will be sharing their experiences with mountains and glaciers with you today. So first up, we welcome Dr. Corin Schuster Wallace. So Corin, I'm going to bring you up here. There you are. Corin is the Executive Director for the Global Institute for Water Security at the University of Saskatchewan. She is the UNESCO Chair holder in Mountain Water Sustainability, the inaugural chair of the Cansu Global's Science, Innovation, Technology, and Education Initiative. And she was recognized just recently, as I guess a year or 2 ago now, as a water hero by the Red Dot Foundation. And Corin, for those of you who aren't familiar with our initiative, Corin is actually the founder of Women Plus Water. So welcome, Corin. It's really an honor to have you hosting today's event and welcoming you in this capacity.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Sunwee Maskey. So Sunwee is a cryosphere research associate. with ISAMOD, specializing in glacial outburst flood modeling and the monitoring of glaciers and permafrost in Nepal. Sunwee led the HKH Women on Ice field expedition, and that was to Ponkar Glacier, hopefully I said that all right, where she's worked to build the confidence, leadership, and hands-on experiences for women pursuing cryospheric sciences. So thank you for joining us, Sunwee. It's an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
Next up, we welcome Caroline Cote. Caroline is a Canadian adventure filmmaker and a polar guide renowned for her solo expeditions in polar environments. Her work focuses on capturing images during her journeys to present in documentaries, and that's to aim to inspire and educate audiences about the natural world, and that includes glaciers. Caroline is also the ambassador for the Canadian node of the International Year for Glaciers Preservation. So thank you for joining us today, Caroline. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Laura Thompson. So Laura is an assistant professor and the Canada Research Chair in Integrated Glacier Monitoring Practices at the Queen's University. She is the Canadian National Correspondent with the World Glacier Monitoring Service, and she focuses her research on monitoring efforts in the glaciers of the Axel Heiberg Island in Nunavut, Canada, which is way up near Greenland. So we appreciate you being here today, Laura, and we welcome you to the Women Plus Water community.
Thanks for having me.
And with that introduction, I will now pass you off for your host today, which is Corin, to provide a bit of a brief introduction of yourselves, and then I'll let you pass that along to the other guests.
Thank you, Stacey. Your gracious introductions, as always. It's a pleasure to be here and talking, and in some ways going back to fond memories of my PhD. I like to tell people that I've come downstream from those water towers since my undergraduate and graduate work. And I just wanted to share one image with everybody just to show the urgency that we're talking about. And I'm going to leave a lot of this to my colleagues who are still active and engaged directly in snow and ice research. But the reason that we need the Glacier Year and the World Glacier Day is for this reason. And so at the top, you can see a 1992 photo, and the bottom one is taken from exactly the same place, but it is taken approximately 30 years later. And so you can see the absolute devastation of a glacier in 30 years. And it pains me to say, I have said it before, I am not sure that my grandchildren, I'm not ready to have them yet, but I am not sure that my grandchildren will actually see the glacier on which my PhD was based. And I spent multiple years and multiple months on this glacier. And Pito Glacier, for those of you who don't know, is in the Canadian Rockies, and it's actually one of those representative monitoring glaciers that I'm sure Laura will share with us later. So I don't want to take time away from our panelists today, but I did just want to share with you my personal experience and ongoing ties to snow and ice, and also to the acceleration and decline that is occurring, not sort of over generations, but actually in our lifetime. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Sunwee. And Sunwee, if you'd like to spend a couple of minutes just introducing yourself and sharing your reflections and your interactions with snow and ice.
Thank you, Corinne. Let me share a slide. So, starting with my background, I am from a small country in the Himalayan region, from Nepal, and I was born and brought up in the foothill of the hills as well as the mountains, and it's something very close to my heart as well. And these, connection with the nature has somehow shaped me into uh, getting into this field of cryosphere and glacier research. And to get there, I did my undergrad as well as graduate level studies from Kathmandu University, which is also based in Nepal. And this moved me into this took me into the journey of getting to this glacier. Like, this is Yala Glacier, which is in the Lantang Valley of Nepal, and this was the photo on the left is was of the time when I first stepped on the glacier. So this is also the first glacier that I ever stepped on. So it is very close to my heart in that regard as well. And then I went there after 6 years. So 6 years later, and then I get on the glacier, and it's very shocking for me, who has been studying this glacier, but then visually seeing the stark difference of the change in the glacier was very sad, as well as very alarming for me at the same time. So what I basically do, like, I mostly work on glacial lake outburst flood modeling and monitoring of glaciers and permafrost in the Nepal. And Here, like, I focus my work on understanding glacier hazards, particularly through GLAF, using updated field bathymetry and survey data. Also, by improving hazard assessment, my research also contributes to better risk management and preparedness for the downstream communities. And apart from these technical expertise, I'm also trying to dedicating to make high altitude field research more inclusive in terms of gender as well. Where last year I led HKH Women on Ice, which was an all women field expedition to Ponkar Glacier, which is in Manang district of Nepal. And this was designed to empower women in glaciology and mountaineering fields where they still remain underrepresented. And through this initiative, we have worked to build confidence, leadership, and hands-on experience for women pursuing cryosphere science, so that they can go back to their own region and take these leadership roles. So these pictures show some of the glimpses of my life in this cryosphere field, how it looks like. Sometimes I'm climbing, sometimes I'm on the ice, sometimes I'm inside the river. So yeah, that sums up the introduction.
Thank you. And I look forward to coming back to some of those barriers that you've been talking about, and also the ways in which you and others in this conversation have been actively trying to remove some of those barriers. So thank you very much. I'll go to Carolyn next. Carolyn.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. We are all passionate about glacier, and this is my passion too. Glaciers are for me my work. I started to get a bit of um, interest about glaciers when I went in Antarctica the first time. It was in 2014. I was pretty young at the time. And I just decided that I wanted to join adventurers. And I had no experience at all camping outside in winter. And so that was a major goal for me, but I didn't really had the way to do it, the exact way to go there. So first of all, the team just said, no, you can't come with us, because I was so unexperienced. And then I joined them at the last minute, and I did a documentary about the adventure. My documentary was quite nice, but it was the first one I did in these conditions. Um, but in this image, I saw that I was showing a lot of athletes, but I think for the first time, I saw that my passion was more related to the snow, the ice, the melting of the ice and the conditions out there. So I decided in my more recent documentaries to ask not only about people doing stuff or athletes or uh, people accomplishing really nice stuff, but also putting nature in front of my image, and this is the way I like to work now. And doing expedition, following athletes, I became myself a polar guide, and I live with this passion to bringing people, and I like to see in their eyes what they can experiment on glaciers. And I think when I bring people out there, for me, it's a way to make feel them better, because yeah, that's what I feel out there. And then I went to Svalbard, and with my partner, Vincent Colliard, another explorer, we cross this archipelago in winter. It took us 63 days, and we did 1,100 kilometers by ski unsupported. So big expedition where I felt not so good all the time. Sometimes it was a struggle, but I saw things that really changed me. And I feel that living in a small tent is the way to do, because you have to detach from all the stuff you have at home and just bring the more essential. So this is it. This is my story. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Laura.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a minute to share my screen. Can you see just my slideshow now?
It's there. Yes, we can.
There we go. Apologies. There we go. Are you seeing my Zoom window as well, or is that okay?
Yes, you're good.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Thompson. I'm an assistant professor at Queen's University. And I was really lucky as an undergraduate student to start volunteering as a field assistant on the White Glacier monitoring program, which is on Umingmat Nunat, which is Axel Heiberg Island in the Canadian Arctic. And since then, I've been very lucky to keep going up there and essentially inherited one of Canada's longest running glacier monitoring programs. So I'm going to approach this with just giving a little overview of where glaciers are in the Canadian Arctic. If you don't know, the Canadian Arctic has the largest area of glaciers in the world outside Greenland and Antarctica. It also hosts more than 75% of all of Canada's glaciers, about 150,000 square kilometers. And there are 4 glacier monitoring programs in this region that have persisted since the early 60s. And I work on this one here, White Glacier up at the top on Axel Heiberg Island. But I've also been working with Parks Canada to try and initiate new monitoring programs in the southern Qaqiktiluk region, which has no long-term monitoring programs. And there's a real void in our understanding of glacier change in this very large region. So in our research group, we use a combination of field-based measurements, field instrumentation, weather stations, geophysical methods, and then also remote sensing techniques with modeling to kind of bring all this together to have a holistic understanding of glacier change, both on the ground where we work, but also expanding using remote sensing and modeling to understand what's happening at a regional scale to those unmeasured areas in this vast region of ice. So just for today, I wanted to take you really quickly to the field site where I've been privileged to work here on Axel. We get there by a twin otter and we stay in this old research hut from the 1960s. And this over here is White Glacier, where we do our field measurements and where field measurements started in 1959. This glacier is about 14 kilometers long, about 40 square kilometers roughly. Yeah, the first full year of glacier mass balance data came in 1960. And along this glacier, we take measurements at approximately 40 different locations, give or take a few, depending on how many steaks the crevasses eat each year. And in this part of the world, we're very close to 80 degrees north, so we only have melting conditions for about 2 months of the year. I think that's going to be really different to say where suddenly works. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to talk about how different glacier environments are around the planet. I don't know if I have time to play this, but this is just a quick little, oops, video kind of, we don't work this fast. This is just a time lapse. But this is showing field work. This is actually on Southern Baffin, but it nicely captures kind of what we do in the field. At each site where we take our measurements, we dig a snow pit, we measure the depth of the snow, we do a stratigraphic analysis so we understand all the different accumulation events, snowfall accumulation events that happened over the winter, measured each of those snowfall layers to get the water equivalent. So essentially, if that snow melts, how much water would be running off. Then we drill a hole into the ice about 5 meters deep. And we install a long pole. You can see Wilson putting that together there. We put this stake in the hole and we measure how much is exposed, and we come back a year later and that tells us how much melt has occurred over the past year. And this type of measurement is done on I think approximately 7 glaciers now across Canada. These are our benchmark or our reference glaciers. Primarily, these measurements are done by the Geological Survey of Canada. And where I work is just a strange little anomaly where it's a university-run program. It started as a university-run program and it continues as such. So, sorry, if I can go to the next slide. There we go. So this area is a polar desert, so we have less than a meter of snow per year, which for any colleagues
Laura,
working...
sorry to interrupt. You've actually stopped sharing when you closed out your
okay.
video, if you've still got more slides.
Thank you. Yes, I do. Is that better?
Great. Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so I'll just note in this region, we have quite low snow compared to other regions, especially in, say, Western Canada, less than a meter accumulation over the entire year. That's because it's a polar desert. However, in just the 2 months of the year that we have melt, we can have near the glacier terminus at least 3 meters of melt, and sometimes that exceeds 5 meters per year. So this little video that I'm showing is just a time lapse demonstrating the melt around a glacier stake over 2 weeks. So it's pretty significant what can happen in a short period of time in this region. And if we take a step back and look at the long-term record for this site, we can see that we have, if what we're seeing here on the negative side is glacier losses each year versus glacier gains. And over the long-term record, you can see that losses have really started to dominate, both in terms of frequency, but also magnitude. The intensity of loss has really increased since kind of the turn of the century. I just wanted to take a note to recognize my mentor, Miles Ecclestone here, he was mentored by the first graduate student to work on this island. And I was mentored by him. So it really is an intergenerational program. And now I'm lucky to be able to bring my students up with me too. So that's been a really rewarding aspect of this work, I would say.
Thank you, Laura. And so now you have had an introduction to all of us, including our motivations to be engaged in the work that we are or have been engaged with, but also I hope that you see the theme of disappearing ice and the realities. And when we think of the water towers and when we think of them being our stores and being active in those warmer seasons when we typically have less rainfall, and so looking at some of those interactions, the one thing I will ask you is, given these changes, and I'm asking as well, almost from a personal perspective as well, because our daughter has been interested in going into glaciology and is currently pursuing glaciology, but we've asked her to broaden out into that environmental monitoring and that water modeling sphere, because I really I don't know where the future is around snow and ice, and we've seen these rapid changes. So I'd like to ask you, what motivates you to continue to do the work that you do, to continue those adventures, to continue interacting both with the snow and ice, but also the people, I know, Carolyn, that you speak to as part of your adventures as well. So I'll open it up. I don't mind who jumps in first, but just how do you get that motivation to continue given these huge changes that we're seeing in snow and ice landscapes around the world?
I can go first, or Sanwi, maybe?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. I think about my experience, because I have so little experience in research compared to Sanwi and Laura, but seeing what I saw with my camera on glaciers, I know that doing my work sometimes is really complicated because I need to make my camera work, and the camera and glacier are not really working well together. It's really cold, and I have so much problem with my hands, and it's hard for me to take these shots. But it represents so much for me to bring back this footage to Montreal, where I lived in the past and where I grew up. Because in Quebec, Canada, we don't see much what are glaciers. I know that Canada has so much of them, but in Quebec, it's so far from us. So it's really important for me to do so. And my true purpose, I would say, is that I think that it's filming them. And what glaciers are really showing me is that collaboration is what you need when you access glaciers. And this is why I'm doing that work, and why I need glaciers is not because for sure it's water for everyone, but for me personally, it's really that I I need them because they're showing me that if we don't work together, they will disappear. And for me, crossing crevasses with people and bringing my camera around, and going on snow bridges on glaciers really mean for me that we need to work all together. I can't really go there alone by myself. I need to be on rope with some people. So this is why personally I think that they are making me learn so much stuff, and I need them in my life, and I'm quite really inspired by for sure their color, their shape and stuff. But yeah, crevasses are just sometimes so huge, and we need to find ways to overcome the day and going above them. So yeah, it's how I live with them in my life, and that's what I love.
Thank you. Sunri.
Um, when I actually go and see these landscapes, and every year it keeps changing, um, it somehow is like it feels like it's something alive, you know. Every year you go there and you see these changes, and it's like you are leaving a part of you there, and it's being washed away as well. And with this, there comes the question of how do we adapt to these changes fast enough? And this is the sad reality that we're facing these days. And of course, like how you had mentioned, Corinne, about what motivates you, because when you look at these sad situations, of course, you get demotivated and you lose hope on the future of the glacier and everything. But then on the other side, if you look at the indigenous and local communities who live there, like it's their livelihood. They survive through these waters, through these glaciers, and how they are so resilient, you know, despite living in that landscape for generation, they're still resilient, and they're still living there, adapting to these changes. And that is, I think, what motivates me, because they themselves who are living there, like staying there, uh, are not demotivated to move away from that place, then why are we supposed to stop working on these, like like monitoring it, or you know it's also, I think, our responsibility to give them give share our knowledge back to them. And then we have the next generation, the young people like us, like me as well, who refuse to be passive about these kind of changes, where they are engaging science as well as trying to understand these traditional wisdom, and coming up with solutions, and trying to shape, like they're inheriting this crisis, but they are also trying to shape their future, because it's their future that is going to get affected. So I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to how we protect these people, how we protect ourselves, and how we protect these places that we call home.
Thank you. Laura.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I really relate to both what Corinne and Sunwi said. There's something about being in, I feel like my eyes are cameras, like being in the beauty of those spaces is a very humbling, and it's an honor to be in those spaces, I find, and to be humbled by the landscape. So on a personal level, that would be my motivation, is just the privilege of being able to be in those places keeps me coming back. To get to the Canadian high Arctic requires a lot of effort and motivation to do it, and to take measurements on an island that is the size of Switzerland and uninhabited. I do sometimes struggle with the lack of seeing those downstream impacts directly, but I know the Canadian Arctic is one of the largest contributors to sea level rise. And so that knowledge that the individuals downstream might be in the Maldives or the Marshall Islands, or simply the downstream ecosystems, the marine ecosystems in the Arctic fjords, and how glaciers also provide nutrients to those ecosystems through their runoff. So I think looking at the beyond human downstream communities too is important, and so that also keeps me going there. And I suppose one last thing for myself is also the intergenerational legacy of the program that I'm lucky to manage now. I feel deeply responsible for keeping that going, and to make sure it sustains for as long as I can until I pass it on to someone next.
And I really appreciate it, and all of you have given a great segue to my next question, because I agree that personal connection, the privilege that we've had to be in these places where you don't see many people, and it comes with challenges. You don't have running water, you don't have electricity, right? You're up there for months at a time, and so it's definitely a different lifestyle, but the privilege of the magnificence of the mountains, and that ties in to that culture, right? And the fact that these water towers, yes, they provide water. You talked a little bit, Laura, about the nutrients and the sea level rise. So what are some of the other impacts that you are sort of recognizing and working on? I know, Sunwi, you talked about the GLOFs, the glacial outburst floods, and obviously they have very real impacts on downstream communities. But what are some of the other impacts that we need to be thinking of when we're talking about this significant change and loss of ice in our environments?
um Apart from, I think the major concern for us now is the disaster that these changes induces, because the risk is pretty high for the downstream communities, and not just the immediate downstream communities, but people who live in this lowland areas as well. And the siltation, the amount of debris that it brings, and this amount of silt that it brings affects the agriculture, as well as the ecology, as well as the biodiversity of that region as well. And risk, with risk, I think there comes the issue of health, as well as sanitation, along with the possibility of the drinking water being affected as well. And not only that, the since our country in is so much dependent on hydropower plants for the energy generation, and so most of the areas depend on either large scale hydropower plants or smaller scale micro hydropower plants for these energy generation. So uh, once these get affected, the whole area is affected, where there might be possibilities of not having lights for days or months, and then it comes down to the lifestyle being affected, and consequently also impacting the tourism sector as well.
I think the tourism is a huge impact, and sort of the highest upstream impact, if you will. And I don't know if Laura or Carolyn, you want to add anything to the impacts?
Would you like to go, Laura?
You can go ahead if you've got something.
As a filmmaker, I'm currently working on a project close to Glaciers in the northern part of Canada, and I am presently filming the subject of the ice bridge in between Greenland and Ellesmere Island. And this part is really important for me. And I took my camera and I spoke with one guide out there that is called Terry Noah. And he's quite young. He's the local hunter. And he has so many stories about how he already, in his short life, saw so much thing happening. And for example, he's telling me that there's no fish anymore in the fjords, and all the population of muskox. I think everything is going away from Grease Fjord and moving so much around because for sure it's warmer. And I think in Montreal, in Canada, where I live, we don't see the impact so much because we go and buy our food in grocery stores, and it's fine. Prices are going up, but there's no problem. But out there, when you go and when your fridge is like the sea and the land, this is where there's big problem. And I think that for Terry and the people living out there, it's huge. I think that it affects people daily, and we are playing with a lot of important stuff right now. So yeah, that's I think that's the main impact that I saw with my camera.
Thank you. And Laura.
Sure. I'll touch on two things, something that Sunwee mentioned and something that Corinne also mentioned. Sunwee mentioned sedimentation and what is coming out of these through glacial runoff, and glacier outburst flood is a very extreme example of that. But there was an interesting study in the Canadian Arctic from a few years ago that was showing that the weathering of sediments inside pro-glacial waters coming off glaciers were actually drawing down atmospheric CO2, carbon dioxide, which was an exciting finding, and not something that was really part of our global understanding of the carbon budget. So that is something that we are also starting to look at now as more of a watershed scale approach, thinking beyond the boundaries of the glacier itself and thinking of what is the nature of those waters and how will the amount of sediment in those waters change in the future, because those glaciers are expected to thin and slow down, be less erosive, and probably have less sediment in them. And so thinking really big picture, like what does that mean for carbon drawdown from that part of the world is something that we're a kind of larger impact that we're thinking about. And then also thinking about as the magnitude of water going into the ocean changes, that can impact global ocean circulation. It can affect where sea ice forms in the north. I think of what you were mentioning about Terry, Carolyn, and so I think, again, they're not direct impacts on specific communities, but rather more at a global scale, understanding and being able to better predict how melt is going to change in the future as glaciers eventually become smaller and smaller. That volume going in will actually go down through time, and what impact will that have? So that's why extending what we do on the ground to using remote sensing and modeling to really expand to big kind of global scales is also really important and a challenge because they're so varied.
I'm glad to hear all of you talking about that, because it's the water temperature, right? It's the timing of the water quantities, because if it's not coming from glacial melt, then it's coming from groundwater. What are the interactions between glaciers and groundwater and surface water and rainfall regimes instead of snowfall regimes? And what does that mean for agriculture and tourism? And do we have the snow or the rain or the melt at the times that we need to use it for energy production, food production, recreation, and as you say, the water towers, but then bringing it down and looking at where a lot of the people live, which are in the foothills and the plains that are associated with those more mountain towers, so water towers, sorry. So I agree that we need to think more about those impacts, and we need to think about it, as you say, Laura, in that kind of watershed approach, in that interconnected approach. And I saw you alluded to it, but the photo from Carolyn earlier on, there was an animal that was melting out of the ice. And that's the other part of it. What's coming out of the ice that's been frozen for all this time? And are there pathogens? Are there pathogens that will affect humans or animals or agriculture, crops and plants? So again, lots and lots of questions and opportunities, but I agree with you somewhere in terms of the resilience and needing to build that resilience and adapt rapidly to those rapid changes and to be able to understand them. So I appreciate all of your inputs on that. I'm going to shift us sort of in the last couple of minutes that we have as a group conversation to talk about your personal experiences, perhaps a little more. And that is that all of us are women, and we've all been engaged in and continue to be engaged in snow and ice research. It's, as you said, Sunwi, it's inaccessible. I know you've got higher altitudes than we're dealing with in Canada, but the challenge is it's not as if there's a highway that you can go up to get to on Axel Heiberg or even in the Rockies. And so what have some of your experiences been? This has typically and still, I would argue, remains somewhat men dominated rather than women dominated. You talked about the ice program. There's a Girls on Ice program here in Canada that's absolutely fantastic as well. And so what are some of those pieces and experiences and ways in which you're bringing diversity? And it's not just women plus water, so it's all equity deserving groups. How are you working? What are your experiences? What can we be doing differently?
Um, so from the experience that I had last year, what I've come to understand is that it's not that we are not doing science, we are doing it, but somehow we are not getting the equal opportunities in this area. So we don't get the same kind of encouragement. There might be different factors that might have been, holding us back, but then it's, I think, a little push that we all need, and this helps us to build our confidence and strengthen as well as support each other, and then we also get to represent glaciers, and uh, you know represent women or women in the glacier, and uh, it also shows that we are also capable of doing these field works, and it was a very encouraging trip, I would say, last year, and everyone was doing their best. There were participants who had never been on the glacier, who have never walked like that in their life, but they were like looking at them, how they were very, mentally pushing themselves to achieve this, and strengthening each other with encouraging words or supporting each other. That was very that was kind of a humble experience as well. So I think that is what I learned from the Women on Ice expedition. What we need is a little encouragement and these kind of trainings, so that we cannot encourage everyone. So they have to go back to their country and be their leaders there, be the leaders in the community, and at least share knowledge that they have learned within the community, so that the community also understand what kind of risk they are in, and how they can deal with that, and how they can come up with their own solutions, rather than us giving them the solution. So that, because it's their community that they are living in, so they can be capable enough of adapting to those risks as well.
Mm.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking about the leadership that women needs to have in these fields. I think in my area, like sport related area, I think there's so less money given to women doing sport on glacier or sport in winter. I feel that we are doing the same, but still, someone that wants to give money to an explorer or an adventurer will give it to a man, because normally it's where, there's more visibility sometime. So that's what I saw. I'm not sure about that. I don't have any text or about this. So, but it's really what I feel. And about women working in the male-dominated field, I would say that polar guides um, really a masculine world, and it's totally okay for me. It's really funny that sometimes I say to people that I'm the guide, and I need to express that we'll navigate for 30 days and stuff. And the first days on the field, I think that some people are challenging me about my skills, and it's okay, but sometimes I feel that it's only because I'm a woman that will you be able to carry that big sled, and are you able to navigate in whiteout and stuff like that. I have so many questions, and then after some days, questions are falling because I can do the job, so it's okay. And I'm really proud that at my job right now, we are more polar guide that are women than polar guide that are men. So it's really nice, and we all work together super nicely. And when I'm working with my camera, when I started, there was a lot of director, and then now there's women doing this work. Adventure filmmaking is a place where I feel that it's still a lot of men working there, but now there's more and more in Quebec, and I feel that it's almost equal. So there's a really good future for that, and we need to give a voice to all the women working on Glacier for sure.
Thank you, Carolyn. Laura.
Thanks. Yeah, for the region that I work on, like on a very basic scale, like when I first started working there in the winter, like there was nowhere for women to go to the washroom. Like there were just some like very simple barriers of like, you know, as part of my job, I run the glacier monitoring research side of things, but I also manage the research station and open up the station every year. And so just recognizing and paying attention to the little things you can do that will make a huge difference for not just women, but people who haven't been represented in that space in the past. And kind of trying to break down barriers whenever you see them. And just, there's been some really great developments in programming around inclusive fieldwork. And I saw Women Plus Water did a seminar on that. And I know I've really benefited from that kind of learning, and even just being able to recognize like, oh, we actually do that. We just didn't have a name for it. And so I think there's really promising directions that we can go. I think there's some truth in that idea of like, if you see it, you can believe it. And White Glacier, where I work, did have one woman work on it in the 1970s, and my PhD was exactly aligned with repeating her work 50 years later. I never got to meet her, but I saw what she did, and I thought, I mean, I was very lucky. She did everything manually, and I had instrumentation that could take those measurements on my behalf. So that's been a big difference. And I would say on the same scale, um, seeing women in academia doing field work, having children, that was not really a big plan of mine. And now I'm a parent. And just knowing that it is possible. And like I had a female glaciologist that I could reach out to say like, how did you handle like being pregnant in the field, or like how do you handle doing field work now remotely and staying in touch? And I have a daughter, and I wanted both show it and be it. And you can't be 100% glaciologist and 100% perfect parent, but there's always trade-offs. But knowing it is possible has kind of been a surprise.
I agree that there is opportunity for balance. I really appreciate everybody's responses to that. And I will say that I came to the realization a couple of years ago, actually, with another Women Plus Water conversation with Gwen Flowers, that I didn't have that woman mentor when I came through. And so I, as I say, would not regret the path that I've taken. Part of my heart is always going to be in the mountains, but I came downstream partly because I didn't have that pathway to be able to maintain and remain in that glaciology field. And so I've come to that realization much later in life. And as I say, don't regret my pathway, but it's wonderful to hear that there are those mentorships, and that there is that change and that retention of women in snow and ice research. And I know others manage to navigate. So I'm going to hand over to Stacey. I know that we've got a couple of questions that have been posted, but I just want to thank you all for a wonderful conversation, especially in light of this being the first day of International Glaciers and also the year and hopefully the decade. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you all so very much. That was a wonderful conversation. I really feel honored to be listening in on that one. So yeah, as Corin mentioned, we do have a couple questions that came in. The first one is from Don. His question reads, in the third pole region, i.e. the Hindu Kush Himalaya, Tibetan Plateau, Pamir, Tian Shan region, hopefully I said most of those all right, the accepted research shows that glacial melt is supplying less than 10% of water in the major rivers. The majority of streamflow is from snowmelt. Has similar work been done in Canada to document the relative contributions of direct rainfall, ice melt, and snowmelt? Kind of looking to you for this one, Laura. Maybe you, Corin.
Yeah, so I can't speak too much to Western Canada because I'm really focused in the Canadian Arctic. And that's actually something that we want to shift our research towards more. Is we've been so focused on the glacier itself at this research site, and we want to start looking at what is the fraction of runoff that is snow versus ice melt. But I feel like the impact of that question really falls into maybe Corinne's expertise. I don't want to put you on the spot though.
That's all right. We did a study looking at some of the contributions to Bow above Banff. And I will say that the further away you get from the glaciers, then the more sources of water you're adding. And I agree that it's both the snow and the ice. And what Dr. John Pomeroy and others have done in the Rockies is to show that we've decreased the snow season over decades, but by about 3 weeks. And so we really are seeing the loss of winter in the mountains, but also in the prairies. And so it's a relatively small contribution the further down you get. And of course, you've got storage systems, big dams, Lake Diefenbaker, those that change the dynamics of the flow contributions. But in 1974, we found that about 60% of the Bow above Banff was glacially derived. And that was one of the really driest, hottest years on record. That's why we looked at it. And so what we do know is that particularly closer to the glaciers, when we have these hot, dry summers, then we are augmenting flow in the rivers. And so it is a challenge because at the moment we're augmenting them to a large degree, and at some point our savings bank will be gone, and so we won't have that augmentation capacity. Will we change it, right? Will we have rain instead, or will we have larger snowpacks that contribute to melt? What will the role of groundwater be in that? So these are questions that we have, and but the reality is that there is water stored, and we are releasing that water at rapid rates, and we're causing impacts in terms of these outburst floods. We're changing the timing of when water's available, the peak water then that's available, and whether that matches up with needs. So these are the questions that we need to be thinking about in addition to that proportion.
Thank you both. I think that answers the question quite well. I see that in the Q&A as well, somebody has suggested to reach out to ab@cwra.org for some modeling stuff that they do in the mountains. So so to Dawn, who posed that question, then you can check that out. One more question before we end today's conversation is from Tanya. It is, what do you see as the greatest strength of this field at this difficult time? And where are the strongest possibilities or opportunities? Anybody want to take a chew on that one? Yeah, go for it, Laura.
I could say something really quick. Well, I just think I think that one of the greatest opportunities is taking advantages of moments like this, when there's opportunities to speak with each other and learn from each other. We all do very different things and learn and work in different areas, but the benefit of, I don't know, just having that global context and seeing the different methodologies and motivations, I think can really strengthen what we do across disciplines and geographically. So that's something that also gives me hope is that, especially with this first international or World Day of Glaciers coming up and International Year of Glaciers Preservation, I think there's going to be nice opportunities for glaciologists to connect with one another in a way that we've never had to before. We haven't had a glacier focused international kind of event like this at a time like this, where we know these changes are happening everywhere and we kind of need all hands on deck. Like, Corinne, I hope your daughter does become a glaciologist, because we are so under represented in the Canadian Arctic, like, and there's going to be ice there to study for a fair amount of time in that region. So I think there's good opportunities.
I'm sure
there.
she'd love the fieldwork opportunities.
Sunwee, Corinne, Caroline, anything to
Yeah,
add?
I would say this event, like for the Day of Glacier World Preservation and the Year of Glacier Preservation, is really great because I can connect with a really nice researcher like Laura and Sanwi, and I'm able more now to be able to share their knowledge, and I think that's what we need is sharing and inspiring research about glaciers. And now today we have a voice and sharing that message, but what if we can do that each day of the year? It can be awesome. And as you say, Laura, I think that it's so not often that we join all together to share something that we think is really important for the future of the young generation. And for me, just the fact to join forces with you today and with all the people listening and asking questions is the best way to do, and that's why I want to do more of that.
I agree with both Laura and Caroline. Um, I guess when we do research, we're mostly focused on only one area, and our all our energy is more focused on that area. But like when we have conversations like this, we directly don't have to go to, for example, I don't have to go to Canada to understand what the gravity of the situation is, and not just in terms of research, but uh, through experiences from Laura and Caroline, I was able to understand um, how the gravity of the situation is there, and it might have been vice versa for all of you as well. So I think these kind of conversations also brings us together a different perspective and looking at things in a different way. So that could be what might help us in the future as well.
Fabulous. Corin, did you have any last remarks?
No, been
Okay.
wonderful panelists.
Yes. With that note, I'll echo Corin. Thank you all so very much for today's conversation. It was a fabulous discussion, and we, of course, appreciate your time and your willingness to share all your expertise and your experiences and everything with us today. So thank you. And to our attendees today, thank you everyone for joining us. Obviously, the Women Plus Water community continues to grow and be impactful because of all of you. So the next Women Plus Water, we're having one more this year. It's going to be held on Thursday, April 10th, and it's going to be covering the art and climate nexus. So it'll be a wonderful conversation next month as well. So please register on the Women Plus Water website. I think there's a link in the chat. Thank you, Viviana. And we look forward to seeing you next month. And before you all leave, I want to thank, of course, Corin Schuster-Wallace, Viviana Barrero-Nino, Tara Hackle, and Jessie Widow for all of the hard work that's been put in behind the scenes here at Women Plus Water. And of course, to our hosts, the Global Institute for Water Security and the College of Arts and Science, both at the University of Saskatchewan, for supporting this initiative, and to the Global Water Futures Observatories Network as well. So at this time, we'll conclude. We invite any students, early career individuals to stay on for an open discussion with the guests. So thank you everyone again. And Sunwee, we understand that it's quite late for you where you are, quite early in the morning, I should say. So thank you so much for staying up late and joining us today. And if you have to head out, then totally understand. But Laura and Caroline, I believe you're able to stay on still. I should have confirmed that before this event.
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. And Corin, are you able to stick around too?
I can. I don't usually have this role, so it's a new one for me. So yes, I can stay on for a little bit.
Then you better stick around. All right. So for those of you who are staying, thank you very much for sticking around. We'll elevate you all to be able to ask your questions yourself if you choose to do so. And otherwise, put your questions into the chat, and we're happy to pass those along ourselves. And so yeah, just hang in with us just a quick second while we transfer this over into a different type of event.